Well, here at Columbia University, we're pleased to be joined by award-winning Professor Jonathan Weiner, who has won both the Pulitzer and the National Book Critics Circle Award for previous books. And his most recent book is Long for This World, The Strange Science of Immortality. Professor Weiner, who is Aubrey de Grey?
Aubrey David Nicholas Jasper de Grey. He is one of the most eccentric and interesting scientists I've ever met. He grew up in London, he studied in Cambridge, England, and became a computer scientist, and then developed the idea that we might live essentially forever, or at least 1,000 years, 10,000 years, some modest span like that. And oddly enough, the more time I spent with Aubrey de Grey, the more I found some of his ideas, not his predictions, not his hopes for 1,000 years or more, but some of his ideas about longevity to be worth taking seriously, to be worth listening to.
Such as?
Well, Aubrey argues that aging should be viewed as something not immutable, but something that we can study, understand, and perhaps fight effectively. And that we can do more about aging now than we ever could before. Those are ideas that I think consensus is building around. Although Aubrey himself is extremely eccentric and extremely controversial, with good reason, I think most people in the field of gerontology, the study of aging, the science of aging, agree now that aging probably is something that we can understand better and that we can learn to control better than we do now. So that's millennial news, right? That's the news that we've been looking for ages. And Aubrey is as good a spokesperson for that optimistic point of view as anyone on the planet.
Well, in the last 50 years, Professor, how have we manipulated our ability to control aging?
Well, a lot of it's indirect. I mean, a lot of the success that you and I are enjoying right now as we age, we're aging more slowly than our parents and our grandparents did. We're very happy about that. We'd like to age even a little slower than we are now. A lot of that is indirect. That's benefits of overall progress. I mean, sanitation in developed countries added a huge amount in the most mundane way to life expectancy. Vaccines, antibiotics added enormous amounts to life expectancy in the 20th century. Now we're doing better with the elderly. People in their 60s, 70s, 80s have better life expectancy than people of the same age a generation back or 2 generations back. And a lot of that, as I say, is indirect. It's because overall we're better at living healthy lives and treating diseases, making life comfortable for ourselves. Again, that's in the countries where medicine has advanced, sanitation has advanced. There are billions of people in the world still who don't have those benefits. But for those of us who are lucky right now, we are living 10 years, 20 years more than our ancestors. And so now the question is, can you study aging head on, and can you do something about the deterioration of the 50s, 60s, 70s, on and up? Can you do anything about that would give us another, 20, 30, 40 years or more? And my story's main character, Aubrey de Grey, likes to argue that if we can only extend life a little faster than we're doing now, medicine will keep advancing faster than our own deterioration, and we'll live essentially forever.
Turn of the century, between the 20th and or the 19th and the 20th century, what was life expectancy, about 40 years?
Yeah, a little better than that. Turn of the 20th century, I think it was 47, 48 years average life expectancy in the U.S. Now we're up to about 80 years. So an enormous gain in just the last century.
How do we get to 1,000, though?
Well, I have to say, before we talk about how to get to 1,000 years, that there are two questions here. There's can we and there's should we. Can we and would we really want to? And I think both of those questions are complicated. And the technical side is very controversial and complicated. The philosophical side, the bioethical questions, do we want to do this if we can? Those are even more complicated. And to me, personally, they may be the most difficult to resolve. I find myself deeply conflicted when I talk with a proselytizer like Aubrey de Grey. But if you want to talk about the technical side of the question, how could we do it? There are maybe 7 broad classes of problems that we all run into as we get older. And Aubrey de Grey divides them very neatly into problems inside our cells and between our cells, problems in the nucleus and outside the nucleus, too many cells here, too few cells there, and a funny problem called cross-linking. All of our molecular machinery starts to kind of stick together in places, and that makes us more rigid inside and out. And that's why our skin, for instance, starts to get wrinkly as we get older. It's not as flexible as it used to be. And if you could attack those cross-links, then you could do something about cosmetic, about wrinkling, and also the more serious problems that cross-links cause inside our bodies where we don't see the wrinkles.
And is there research, is there work being done on this rigidity?
Yeah, there's research being done on all of those 7 different kinds of aging problems. There are enzymes, for instance, that can go through your body and snip those crosslinks. The trouble with them is that those little molecular scissors can't necessarily tell the bad crosslinks from the good stuff that makes our molecular machinery run, so they're not specific enough to be used to help. If you could teach them just where to snip and where not to snip, then you might have a useful medical tool.
Now, Professor Weiner, one more example on the technical side before we get into the should we side.
Yeah. One more example. Well, if you look at where our energy comes from, our molecular factories are called mitochondria. The energy production takes place there. That's in effect, that's our power plants. And the mitochondria are scattered through every cell, and they have some DNA of their own. Most of our DNA is packed into the nucleus, that dark ball at the center of every cell. But there is some DNA in the mitochondria. They develop mutations, those strands of DNA, faster than the DNA that are relatively safe and protected inside the nucleus. So Aubrey de Grey says, what if we could take some of that DNA and make copies of it and put it into the nucleus where it would be safe for mutations, so that then the work of energy production could keep going without deteriorating, without those mutations building up in the power plants, and we'd be energetic for longer and longer. That's an argument that a few biologists have made before Aubrey. He's pulled together some interesting research that suggests it could be done. And who knows, maybe that could work someday. Again, very controversial and a little bit far out right now. He has some other ideas that are even farther out, I have to say. My personal favorite is his graveyard idea. There's garbage that builds up in the cells, constantly byproducts of metabolism. If you could figure out how to help the body eliminate that garbage, indigestible stuff that our own body's housekeeping enzymes can't clean up, then maybe we could live for decades or centuries longer. So Aubrey says, where are the living things that have figured out how to eat every part of our body, including the indigestible stuff that our own bodies can't clear out? It's in graveyards. The bugs, the germs, the bacteria in ancient graveyards, like the ones in Cambridge, like Coldham Common, I think it's called, centuries-old graveyards in Cambridge, where Aubrey lives, are specialists in devouring every last bit of us.